right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly update that we've been doing consistently every Sunday since we started these campaigns. Isn't that right, Diane?
I wish it were, but we've been a little bit busy and it's only 29 days till the election, Jose.
Yeah, don't remind me how close we are. It's been a pretty busy week. We had a few different kinds of interventions, hurricanes, and there's war with Iran. I mean, these things tend to happen in October, just before an election. So it's interesting that they happen when they do. But let's kind of get started here. I guess one of the things we need to wrap up on is this Paul Krugman intervention that was done by myself. Um, Before I actually play it, Diane, what do you know about Paul Krugman?
He's a scumbag.
Okay.
He
So,
writes for the New York Times.
yeah,
I guess he's a Nobel Prize winner, which is really very bad nowadays. Um, he teaches at New York University, I think.
no, at the CUNY Graduate Center.
Oh, is that where he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he's a scam. I mean, anyone who calls himself an economist and doesn't pay homage to Lyndon LaRouche, who was the greatest economist and economic forecaster ever, is basically a fraud. So that's what I know about him.
So this week I went to an event called "Perceptions of the Economy and How Will It Affect the Elections." And I only got to know who Paul Krugman was really like recently because of the fact that I was going to go intervene on him. I just knew that this guy was famous for telling people, "Hey, the economy is actually really good, and there's no reason to be depressed." Even though when you and I went to Washington D.C., we found out that like 18 eggs costed $10 or something, and there was a lady telling people don't buy the eggs. Well, just they'll make them cheaper in a few days if people don't buy the eggs. But yeah, Paul Krugman, he is famous for telling you the economy's doing great, and then he'll just put up a graph. Actually, I kind of have to show this before I play the intervention. So Paul Krugman posted on his Twitter, which I will post here as well. If that he was quoting Trump, that if Biden gets in, you're going to have depression, the likes of which you've never seen before, with the possible exception of 1929. And then he just posts a graph with like no, like here's a graph, right? And the graph goes up, and this is supposed to mean the economy's great. So I satirized it by saying, "Oh, now you think the economy sucks right now? According to my graph, the economy is doing good." And I made this little graph here that says if it's to the left, it's bad, and if it's to the right, it's good. And as you can see, the economy is doing very, very well there. So,
Yeah, I saw that graph and I was trying to figure out what it was about. And thank you for explaining it to me. I never would have gotten it.
see, that's the problem. You were thinking like an economist there. You were thinking like, what does this graph actually mean? But no, it's just a silly graph. So I went to this event that he did where he uh, was telling people, "Hey, I think I don't know why people think the economy's bad. If they knew how good the economy was, the incumbent president would win in a landslide." In terms of Kamala Harris. So I stood up at this event, and we're gonna play that here. If you can't hear it, let me know, Diane. But and I will full screen the video.
Uh-oh, Nobel Prize-winning economist here to tell us how great the economy is. I certainly wonder how the residents of Asheville, North Carolina must be feeling right now with no access to power or water or communication with the outside world. I wonder how enthusiastic they are about the economy right now. I wonder how enthusiastic the residents of the South Bronx must be feeling about the economy. Hey, maybe North Carolina should rename itself Israel so it'll get $20 billion in aid. Or maybe Ukraine so it can get $300 billion in aid. Maybe the South Bronx should do the same thing. I mean, I'm sure the economy is great for smug liberals like yourself who make $5 million and are worth $5 million. I'm sure the economy must be great for all you smug journalists economists, all of you must be having a great time with the economy when most people can't even pay. For people who are getting evicted because they can't pay their rent. Because over in the South Bronx, just a few miles away from here, there are portions of buildings that are literally collapsing. And I'm supposed to give a shit about the stock market. You want to know why the presidential election is tied right now? Because our money is being sent to Israel and Ukraine so that they can continue to bomb innocent women and children. You think that's a great economy? I'm sure Israel, with their free healthcare, is having a great time with American taxpayer money. Hey, is anyone here going to talk about the fact that we could be in war with Iran in a few days? Or do we need to focus on the S&P 500? Is that what actually matters? The S&P 500, when most people may not even be alive here in a few days just because we're on the verge of nuclear war. Hey, listen to me, Mr. Krugman. Your degree is worthless. You might as well use it as paperweight because it means nothing. I hope you enjoy the dead children that the economy is powering. Our economy is definitely very powerful right now. All that stock market money goes to the military complex so that more innocent women and children are dead. And fuck off with the New York Times, the liberal apologists for war and genocide. You all fucking suck. People need to wake up right now, and we need to have peace. We can work with China. We can work with Russia. We don't need to start war with Iran. All right, I'm here.
All right, so I do want to apologize for the profanity there at the end. That's why people should be singing in choruses, because you have to know what to say when you run out of things to say and not resort to. Although, to be fair, I was getting hauled out by like a 300-pound football player who picked me up like I was a feather. So I'm not, I'm not the lightest guy in the world. So, but I posted this because I posted it twice actually. I posted it once because I just did it, but then it got kind of like swept under the rug because of the JD Vance and Waltz debate. But then Krugman in the next day said, last night at a CUNY event about perceptions of the economy, we had a guy yelling about Biden refusing to help Helene victims who had to be escorted out. So Trump's lies have gone viral. And what's also great about this tweet is that it was fact checked. Somebody, it'll come up, but somebody was gracious enough to put a fact check behind the Krugman intervention where they posted, actually, this was not just here. I'm going to try and read this. It was a political candidate in the Bronx. I'm going to refresh again. That stating that their opinion and their areas were also affected. While he said Helene, he also referenced his own area and its own issues. And then there was a link to the intervention into my my post talking about me being a candidate, and also, of course, why it was wrong. And Paul Krugman couldn't let it go to the point that he even made a New York Times article about it. And so hopefully I can show this too. Doing everything here. Yeah, on Tuesday, this is Paul Krugman. I was part of a City University New York event about economic perceptions, which was briefly disrupted by a protester yelling out that President Biden isn't helping some of the areas afflicted by Hurricane Helene. The guy's politics were unclear. He was also yelling something about Israel, but it was an indication that Donald Trump's lie has gone viral. So clearly, they're running scared. Not only did he make a Twitter post about it, but then he also made a New York Times article about it, which is great.
Well, I think it's not, I mean, whatever. Donald Trump may be saying that the Biden economy is terrible, which it is. I have to say that Trump's economy was pretty terrible as well, although, the stock market went up and maybe we were building a few more things because he got rid of some regulations. But I think what they're actually terrified about is we're headed for the biggest crash ever. And it's now been stated publicly and officially that at the BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, they are going to be talking about establishing a new currency. They're getting off this Titanic. They don't want to be tied. And it's not that they're against us. We pushed them off the boat. We threw Russia out of the SWIFT system. Our sanctions, our arrogance, our tone deafness, the fact that our quota, I mean, you can't even call the people at the US State Department diplomats. They're not diplomats, they're pompous jerk-offs. They don't know a thing about diplomacy, and they think that they can threaten nuclear war until even the people at the Pentagon have to rein them in, as happened on September 14th when Biden, because Putin went to a back channel to say, you better not allow Ukraine to use your long range missiles to strike deep into Russia. There will be a response which you will regret. So he had to go to the military to get Biden to tell Keir Starmer no. And then after that, as you know, Russia changed their doctrine where they said if a non-nuclear power, i.e. Ukraine, backed by a nuclear power, launches an attack on Russia with conventional weapons, that Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in response. Now, anyone who's not alarmed about that, and then you may have heard that as of yesterday, the Russian ambassador, Anatoly Antonov, to the US has been recalled. Now, recalling an ambassador to a country is usually an act that precedes war. This is extremely dangerous. And Antonov is not just some lightweight incompetent. He was involved in negotiating the intermediate nuclear forces. He is a military man with vast experience in arms reduction negotiations. So the Russians had sent here one of their top people, a person who would be the best possible interlocutor if we wanted to have a discussion about getting nuclear war off the table. And they've decided, due to the arrogance and delusional quality of Americans, that there's no purpose for this very qualified diplomat to remain in Washington. So he has gone back to Moscow.
Wow. That's, yeah. So, I mean, I think it only goes to show the urgency of why people need to be intervening in the way in which we just showed just now. Because, and also I want to respond to something. I think I was getting a lot of flack because people keep saying, well, this is a great intervention, but what about the people of the Bronx? Are you speaking up for the people in your community? I want to make one thing clear. My community does not begin or end at an arbitrary congressional line. That's one. But secondly, who do you think they're going to draft to the war in Iran? Assuming we get to a stage where we get to a draft, they're going to draft the poor people out of the Bronx. They're going to be killing the sons and daughters of the people here in the Bronx. That's what they're going to do. And frankly, a nuclear bomb affects us all. It's not just, I mean, maybe if I could build a lead barrier around the Bronx, maybe we might have a fighting.
Yeah, you'll starve after you run out of rice and beans.
Yeah, right. So
it's, also, where is Helene? That's North Carolina, Tennessee. And who's to say there won't be some hurricane? We had Sandy 12 years ago. And, we have billions, hundreds of billions. You never heard, have you ever heard anyone in the Congress say, I think we've run out of money to send Ukraine or Israel?
no. Right.
We
Right.
haven't run out of money for Ukraine or Israel, who are committing horrible crimes. I mean, Ukraine's crimes are, they were shooting Russian prisoners of war in the back and supposedly also castrating Russian prisoners of war. And I think the Russian hospitals didn't want that being reported because it would incite so much rage. So you've got some quite unsavory characters in Ukraine. And then you have Bibi Netanyahu and his brigades, which were trained using the manuals of General Stroop, who was the Nazi commander who cleared out the Warsaw Ghetto. And that's reading for the IDF soldiers who were committing horrific atrocities in Gaza. So somehow we have no limit of funding for horror, for killing hundreds of thousands of people abroad. But when it comes to doing something to help the American people, gee, we're out of money. We are out of money. And then we try and blame it on the migrants. Give me a break. The
Yeah.
Republican Party actually cut the budget for FEMA. And I was thinking about, I'm not sure when FEMA started. Do you know, was it after 2001 or was it some other point? You're going to look it up right
Um, well, according to Google, FEMA was established under the 1978 reorganization plan. It was activated by President Carter
now.
in 1979.
See, I don't know why I guess it has a certain function now, maybe, but it's clearly not functioning. But I showed on my symposium this past Friday a delightful video. It was a promo for the WPA. Okay, so they wanted to promote themselves, but it was amazing. It was the hurricane of 1938. Have you seen that video?
No?
It's called, I think it's called Storm Troops or Shock Troops of Disaster. And it was the American response when a hurricane struck New England, which was a massive storm. It killed 250 people at least. That was one of the headlines I saw. Totally ravaged the whole East Coast. Within 3 days, 100,000 people were in New England rebuilding. 100,000 people in 3 days. FDR didn't turn people away. If volunteers just showed up, the Red Cross coordinated that. But he had the Coast Guard and they summoned every single boat, anyone with a boat. They didn't care who that come in, come help, rescue people, rebuild, clear the rubble, find the injured people. They talked about a man they found after 40 hours still alive, buried under feet of rubble. And horrible things happened. One of the things that happened was a school bus full of children got hit by a wave and they all washed out to sea and drowned. I mean, horrible. It was a horrible storm. And the nation pulled together, and we had a president who wanted to allow people to pull together, which is a natural thing. How many people have rushed down to North Carolina, Tennessee to try and help, to be turned away and told, no, you're not, you can't do it. We're handling it. And then they're not handling it. Or as this one helicopter, I think he's a firefighter who happens to also have a helicopter and he's a trained pilot. He went in and he rescued 6 people and then they told him he was going to be arrested.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it goes to show you that. And I think what Kamala Harris did a press conference down there where she said, we're only going to give the victims $750.
Yeah, now I should, because I know Pasta said FEMA does a really tricky thing, and we saw it in Woodside where they, the flood victims, and they'll give you a payout of $750, and then you have to fill out all these long applications of everything else that's wrong and everything. And generally they reject them, and you have to apply over and over and over again. And it's sort of like reading the parking signs in New York City. You need a law degree to get through the
This is just to get the $750?
No, they give you that, but then they won't give you say, well, I lost my water heater, my boiler, my windows. I have $27,000 worth of damage, or my house is a total loss. I have 300, I don't know what houses cost down there, $87,000 or whatever it is of damage. And you apply for that and they say, oh, no, they reject it. So and then what they did in Woodside, which is so outrageous, they said, oh, we're not going to fix the sewer main that is too small and inadequate for the number of people living there. And that's been known for 50 years. They said, what we're going to do is force you to buy insurance. So you can pay for insurance to have your house flooded out again. And that's why this thing that the BRICS are doing, if you think about what Lyndon LaRouche was proposing and what he said, what did he say about economy? He said, money is worth nothing. It has no intrinsic value. Everything is measured in physical terms. It's physics, right? It's man, it's humanity. How are people living? That is the metric of whether you are prosperous or not what you said, right? The height of the stock market. What a bunch of crap. The actual economy is an inverse to the stock market.
Yes, absolutely. I think if Paul Krugman would like to debate us on that or debate me on it, we should do it on the corner of 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. We can tell all the people who are splayed out, overdosed on drugs, the homeless people there, we can tell them, we can bring graphs
Right.
of the stock market and said, excuse me, but you understand that the economy is actually doing pretty good according to my graph here.
Right.
So, and I would actually challenge Krugman to a debate. I don't think he's able to. I don't think he would actually be able to keep up with me. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, the guy's allowed to write about me in the New York Times. Shouldn't I have at least a chance to write back in the New York Times?
Good.
My own, right?
Of course.
So
maybe we should go there. Now, before we get off, because I have to get to another interview and you have things coming up, we should say something about October 26th, because we want everybody, all men and women of goodwill are invited to come October 26th.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, here we go. I'll bring it up and you say something.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes, the Jose Vega Diane Sayre Peace Fund, and the website is
VegaSayrePeaceFund.org.
Yes, VegaSayrePeaceFund.org. And this is going to be an incredible event, Saturday, October 26th, 2 p.m. It is in Midtown South, Manhattan. You can get the address if you donate the $50 for a ticket to register. You can also donate much more. We are in the last 4 weeks of our campaign and we need a lot of money. So if you haven't yet given to either of our campaigns, you can donate $6,600 to the Peace Fund, or you can put in $1,000 or $500 or whatever you want. But we'd like you to join us. We're going to have some phenomenal military and intelligence professionals who will be there in person. People who worked at the Pentagon, people who were in combat, people who worked formerly with the CIA, very high level speakers. There's going to be a chorus. There's going to be a string quartet, a brass quintet. It's going to be incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So, Diane, I think we can just end it there.
Oh, don't say that. We're not. We can, yeah.
We can end our.
Back again. We'll.
I guess we can put a hold. We can pause this program for now and bring it back up next Sunday.
Okay, that sounds good. I hope we're still alive. Things aren't looking so great. Thanks.
Diane. All right.
Very
All right.
good.
Here we go. And I'm ending the stream.